All right, we are back with the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith.
How's it
Uh,
going, man?
it's going well,
Good,
Carter.
good. How's your week going so far?
Oh, can't complain. It's going real good. T-ball's about to
Good.
start, so
Nice. Hell yeah, man. That's
what
awesome.
more?
Good
What
deal.
more can you ask for? And then up here in Northeast Indiana, it does nothing but rain and snow in April. So
Yeah. Yeah, we were supposed to have some crazy storms. Did you guys get hit bad yesterday?
no, the weather up here was just really odd. It was real
Mm-hmm.
windy, and then halfway through the day it started raining, and then it turned into snow, and then it went back to rain. So
That's weird. Yeah, we were supposed to have, terrible thunderstorms, tornadoes. We're talking the worst tornado warnings they've had in Ohio in a decade, is what they were calling it. And it rained for a little bit in the morning, and then it rained a little bit in the afternoon, but like it really never happened. And they put up like flood walls in Columbus, and there's tons of flooding just because of the amount of rain we've had recently. But yeah, I was waiting for these massive storms and tornadoes and all that, and it was pretty chill actually.
man, that's wild how that works. But nothing gets the people riled up like the weather. So
Absolutely.
I guess we can hop right in.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's go ahead and jump into it.
Major news today.
Yes, sir.
Stephon Diggs, ex of the Buffalo Bills, is now a Houston Texan for a second round pick. What are your thoughts?
Man, I have mixed feelings about it. Honestly, I love it. I love it for C.J. Stroud. I mean, give him another weapon. The Texans realized that this is their window. They drafted C.J. Stroud last year. Weren't sure if he was going to be, how long it would take him, but he hit it right away. He hit it in stride, and they know, okay, our best chance to win a Super Bowl is when the quarterback's on a rookie contract. Well, we got our franchise quarterback on a rookie contract right now, and we got our franchise defensive end on a rookie contract right now. So let's go put a bunch of pieces around those two, build great defense, great offense, and go try to win a Super Bowl. So I mean, from the Houston perspective, I love it. My only concern is, man, that dude has been a cancer in the locker room. I mean, everywhere he's gone, it starts off hot as shit. And then 2, 3 years down the road, he's bitching, he's whining, they're having to explain to the media why Kirk Cousins or whoever the quarterback was in Minnesota doesn't hate Stephon Diggs. And then 3, 4 years later, they have to explain to the media why Stephon Diggs doesn't hate Josh Allen. And so for me, I love his talent. I mean, he's 30 years old, going to be 31 this year. So he's getting up there in age, but he's a good receiver. So I don't hate it for Houston. I just hope it doesn't derail CJ's progress in the locker room.
Um, with adding to that, I have a huge concern when it comes to the locker room. I just don't know if you can trust a guy that is consistently he's forced his way off of every roster that he's ever been on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Forced his way out of Minnesota, forced his way out of Buffalo now, and then his production slipped. 8 touchdowns for almost 1,200 yards. I mean, he's going into his 10th year in the league, so um, I find it really strange that Houston would make a move. I feel like it's a lateral move. I think getting a receiver coming out would have been a better move for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Houston needs a big bodied receiver, like a possession receiver, like a Mike Evans. Or they could have went out and got Mike Williams. Keenan Allen was available, went to Chicago. I would have
Mm-hmm.
thought those would have been better options to fit what Houston is trying to do, because I think down the stretch they had issues because they have a lot of smaller receivers. They have the receivers that are, in that
Yeah.
5'10" to 6'1" ratio. I don't think they have a
Yeah.
receiver over 6'2".
Yeah. I don't know what Nico is. I don't think he's any taller than that, but yeah, I mean, you got Nico Collins, now Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell, who's tiny, right? Um, Now they can still go out and get a big body receiver in the draft this year. The second round pick that they're sending down to Buffalo is 2025. So that's a year away. So that's part of the reason I think Houston was able to or was willing to give up a second round for Stephon is because it's a year away. So value wise, it's not as valuable as this year's second round pick, right? I mean, it's still a second round pick, but the value is just I'd rather sell a future second round pick than this year's second round pick because I know what I want this year. But I think they still, I mean, they might have an opportunity to go out and get a Keon Coleman or somebody that's a little bigger bodied receiver out of college and still add to that arsenal. They got Laramie Tunsil on the line. So their line is pretty solid. They need to add a couple pieces here and there, other places. But then they got aging Joe Mixon at running back, who has been an effective running back, and he needs to stay healthy. And hopefully being behind this offensive line will help him. But really, you look at their offense, at least the defense is still solid, but it needs improvements in the secondary and a couple other places. But their offense is pretty stacked. I mean, you're talking about, obviously you got a franchise quarterback in CJ Stroud. You got Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs. Nico Collins has proven to be a nice asset, maybe a good number 2, number 3 receiver. Tank Dell, before he got injured last year, was a really solid option. And then their tight end room is decent, and so I don't hate it because of the amount of talent that's going to be around him. And maybe a fresh start is what Stephon needed.
Well, with that being said, I thought Stephon's fresh start was supposed to be in Buffalo with the young quarterback, and they just couldn't get over the hump and get it done. Now, is that Josh Allen's fault? Does Josh Allen shoulder some of the blame in that? Yes, he does, but forcing your way out of town every time you don't like the situation or you don't think you're getting the opportunity that you need. I mean, he had 100 catches. I mean, that's a lot of catches, but not many yards and not many touchdowns. And I think Buffalo, with the cryptic tweets and the all the social media stuff, I just think it's kind of a joke.
Yeah, honestly. No, I agree. I mean, you said 1,200 yards isn't bad. Okay, that's a solid day. That's a solid year. That's not bad. He could be better. He could be more in the 1,500 yard range, but 1,200 yards. Let's not act like it. He went out there and put up 700, 800 yards. Like, he still went over 1,000. He still put up 1,200, 8 touchdowns. He definitely could have been better. But I agree completely with the diva status. Now, you got to understand. You go back years with this guy, it's always been this way. All the way back to his recruitment to college when he chose Maryland over Ohio State and a couple other places. That was a shit show in itself. I mean, it's always been this way with Stephon, okay? Now, you just always looked the other way because the talent was so much more than the headache. And now he's getting older. Maybe that talent's coming back down to a level where the headache's not worth it anymore. But obviously, Houston believed that he has enough talent that they'll deal with the headaches for a couple years and see what happens, because they're trying to win now. I still think of the receivers you mentioned, other than maybe I'm trying to think. Keenan Allen. I probably take Stephon over Keenan Allen. Probably take Stephon over Mike Williams. Who's the other one you said?
Mike Evans. But
I'm taking Mike Evans over Stephon probably.
And I would have thought that would have been a huge connection, just for the simple fact that Mike went to Texas A&M, and I would have thought Houston would have opened up the checkbook for it. But it's hard to criticize what's going on in Houston right now, just for the simple fact of everything they've done has turned to pure gold. So hopefully they don't go the other way on that.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they have probably the best franchise quarterback they've ever had. And they got a great franchise edge rusher, and they got a great head coach. The first 3 moves they made as a new regime. So, we'll see what happens with it, but I don't hate it. I hope it works out, especially for CJ.
Right. Moving on.
Okay.
Pat Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
That was some interesting news that came out. Northwestern lost in court, I believe it was last week, on the wrongful termination lawsuit. Yep. I don't have a whole bunch of information. This has been airtight ever since he was suspended / fired.
Mhm.
Nobody knows anything. They have kept this to the vest of what Pat Fitzgerald knew and what he didn't know.
Yep.
If anybody was affected by that, my heart goes out to you. But um, the
Yeah.
as far as the lawsuit,
Mhm.
if Northwestern loses this, that's a huge chunk of change because they're on the hook for $130 million. The $63 million that they owe him, and
Mhm.
then there's $62 million in future earnings he's also suing
Yep.
them for.
Yeah, and if I had to guess, I don't know if he'll get the whole amount. He'll probably get the 63 they owe him and maybe a little bit. But regardless, Northwestern doesn't want to lose this lawsuit because it looks bad. And the bottom line is they've handled this whole situation wrong from the jump. And so they should lose this lawsuit because everything they told you when they came out and suspended Fitzgerald and everything that came out was Pat Fitzgerald didn't know about it. We're suspending him because of lack of institutional control. He's going to, it's not a big deal. Well, then people dug into the report and were like, well, this seems like kind of a big deal. And then they came out and said, oh, we're going to fire Pat because he knew about it. And it's like, well, you just told us he didn't know about it, but now he does. So they've handled this whole thing wrong, and that's why they're going to lose in court because Pat Fitzgerald might have known about what was going on. And to be honest with you, I don't really care if he did or not. And he was running his program the way he saw fit, and it was obviously wrong. People were being hazed, people were being abused, and a lot of people that played in the early 2000s, late 90s, late 80s, they can't relate to this because that was just a normal locker room. Honestly, like it was just a weird place that people messed with people, and but it never crossed certain boundaries or certain lines and made it more aggressive than it needed to be. And I think that's where it kind of went off the rails here, but also it was happening in 2010, 2020, whatever. So at that point, it was time. He needed to step in and change the culture, and he didn't do that. So I believe that he should have been fired or at least suspended for lack of institutional control. But you can't fire him for cause at that point.
I'm not a legal scholar by any means, but
Oh, me either. But
it just to me it disclaimer, we're not giving legal advice, but
no, definitely not.
uh when it comes to this, the whole situation stinks to me.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
just absolutely stinks because, like you said, they've came out and give conflicting reports. When it all came out, oh, he didn't know this or he didn't know that, and then people dug into it, talked to some kids, but it, not to say that some wrong things didn't go down in
Mm-hmm.
Northwestern, but a lot of the kids didn't really jump ship like you thought.
No, and that's the biggest thing that I take away from it is, listen, I understand that there was probably incidents that happened, and I understand that there were going to be kids that were impacted by those incidents negatively, and it left a negative taste in their mouth towards the program and towards Pat Fitzgerald as a man and as a coach, right? But
Yes.
the vast majority of kids on that team and players that played for that man have come out vehemently in support of Pat Fitzgerald and said that this is bullshit. It's overblown. It's a couple of kids that are taking things out of context and blowing them out of proportion. Now, obviously, I don't know what's right and what's wrong or what's going on and what's not going on. But I can tell you, if the majority of the people that have interacted with a man tell you that person is this type of person, and then the few that have bad experiences with that person tell you he's this type of person, I guarantee you it's somewhere in the middle.
And one of the things that I look at too is that the four-letter network came out and made this way worse than what it is, and
No, it's a Big
so
Ten school. Of course they did.
So they pretty much painted the canvas that Northwestern was left for dead, and I'm gonna pull up their record here, but I want to say they went 6-6, and I think their coach should have been at least considered for Big Ten Coach of the Year. Whenever the head coach gets fired right after spring ball, recruiting is in disarray, and plus you're already 2/3 disabled whenever it comes to recruiting at Northwestern, just for the simple fact of that they have built a new facility up there, but the academic standards, and it's Northwestern.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Northwestern's always tough to recruit at just because of the program that it is. But it's I don't disagree. That coach did a phenomenal job given the circumstances that he was. And I think Pat Fitzgerald won like 2 games the year before. So I mean, to go from 2 wins to 6 wins with a coaching change after spring ball in essentially the middle of the summer. I mean, that's good on that coach. But there were some other Big Ten coaches that did pretty impressive things too.
Yeah, I agree to that. It just is really bad, and I think it's a huge disservice to the kids that committed, that bought in, that wanted to play for Coach Fitzgerald. And it's wild to me that Northwestern is going down this road because they think they're going to get out of it. And I think
I don't think they will.
This is what I think they're going to have to pay $100 million of money that they really don't. They probably got it, but it's going to hurt.
They have it, but they don't want to spend it on that.
And
no, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have to pay him $100 million and name the stadium Pat Fitzgerald Stadium. And there's
sorry about that. Correction. Northwestern went 8-5 last year.
Ooh, all right. I mean, maybe it should have been more.
And the booger picking derelict, was 15-0. But
yeah,
I digress.
Hey, the unique thing about both of them is both their head coaches were either suspended at some point or fired at some point, and both groups of players wore short shirts that said "Free their coach," right? Free Harbaugh, free Fitzgerald.
I think one has a more noble cause than the other, but
I would think so. I don't know. Kind of making freshmen run naked through the locker room as you whip them with towels and shit. It's maybe a little less noble than stealing signs, but
that's
maybe I don't know.
That's tough. That's real tough.
We don't condone any sort of sexual intimidation or assault on this program. Okay.
Yes. Full disclaimer: we are not for hazing. I guess this leads it to a more serious note. If Pat Fitzgerald wins this lawsuit, let's say he gets $100 million, and Northwestern has to pay it in X amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go out? Do you call up the agent and say, "I want to coach some football"?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I've been saying this. People don't believe me, but I feel like this could cause a huge shift in tectonic plates throughout the Big Ten. We have Illinois coach Brett Bielema.
Yep.
He is a Iowa alumni. If Kirk Ferentz decides to hang it up soon, which he's been there, 20 plus years.
Yeah.
He
probably should. Yeah.
I would say he's a Hall of Fame coach in my opinion.
The
College
Football Hall of Fame, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'd probably give it that.
College Football Hall of Fame. I could definitely see. I mean, Coach Bielema's got a Hawkeye tattooed on the back of his calf.
That's loyalty right there.
So, and he played at Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
If
listen, I already know where you're going. Right?
So, if you're Pat Fitzgerald, do you throw your hat in the ring for that? You already know you're in Champaign. You're not in Evanston. I mean, you're a couple hours apart, and you ain't got no academic you know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
restraints, and you literally don't have to leave. You don't have to leave because you're
Yeah.
so close there. You got
Yeah.
you got Chicago, Detroit,
Yeah.
Milwaukee, all of that
Mm-hmm.
in that region, and you don't have to worry about, does this kid have a 4.0 and a 1600 on the SAT?
Yeah. No, so it's funny you bring that up. Before you even started bringing this up, I was thinking about who Northwestern's rival was, because as soon as Pat Fitzgerald wins this lawsuit, if he does, which I believe he might, he gets $100 million. I'm telling my agent, listen, call Illinois, tell him I'll do it for a mil, 1 million a year for 10 years. And I will go out there and I will build a powerhouse in what used to be the Big Ten West. And I will face Northwestern every year, and I will make sure to just beat the fuck out of them, because I don't care. It's my alma mater. I don't care that I coached there. I don't care that I was a hero. It's fuck Northwestern at this point. I'm a petty motherfucker though. All right. So
Yeah.
I would do that shit.
And here's another thing that, a couple other programs have brought up. Siskey and McCready have brought this up, and this is firsthand example. Your alma mater does not love you as much as you think they do. You love them more than they love you, and this is a prime example. Look at all the guys that have came back to their alma maters to coach that it has not worked out. You had the whole, which Juwan Howard a-holed his way out of Michigan, like a scumbag.
Yeah,
like a scumbag.
100% his fault. Yeah.
And you had Matt Luke down at Ole Miss. It didn't go well. He got fired, which he played there. All those guys, and I think that's why some people or some coaches shy away from coming back to the alma mater.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because you don't want to ruin that relationship, right? So if things don't work out, I mean, like, look at my grandfather, right? My grandfather played at Ohio State, went on, coached elsewhere, came back to Ohio State as a head coach after Woody got fired, coached 9 years, had success, got fired. It didn't sour his relationship with the university, but it soured our entire family's relationship. That's for sure. Our entire family was pissed. And so much so that it's well documented. We became Michigan fans. We became Notre Dame fans. Whatever we had to do to try to stick it to Ohio State. Meanwhile, my grandfather's pissed off at all of us for doing it, and he's still a Buckeye. But that's where it sours that relationship. Now, a lot of places, I think a lot of people can understand the business side of things and understand. Okay, you had to fire me. It was time. Let me go. Okay. And they can still respect the university for what they've done for them as a person and over their career. But yeah, it's the alma mater thing it's a great marriage when it's great, right? But it's almost like a toxic relationship. Like when it's great, it's fucking great, dude. You're loved. Everybody loves you. You're the hero. You're Jim Harbaugh right now. But the first 6 years of Jim Harbaugh's career, or his tenure at Michigan, but bro, they didn't like him. He was the savior. He was the white knight. He was supposed to save the program, and he couldn't beat Michigan State or Ohio State the first 6 years. So now he turned it around, and he gets to ride off on his white Bronco out to LA. But
that is a long, in-depth conversation. I have a lot of feelings on that.
Yeah, I know.
We won't dive into that. We'll stay on course. But I will say on the final note on the alma mater thing, I do believe that there's a story out there that the AD quit at Ohio State before he was his grandfather. So
yeah, absolutely. The name escapes me right now, but yeah, no. So I think the president's name was Ed Jennings at the time. And he came to the AD and he said, "Hey, listen, I need you to go fire Earl." And he looked at me and goes, "No." He goes, "I will not fucking do that. You can fire me, but I'm not firing Earl." And he said, I quit if that's what you're going to make me do. And so the AD quit, and then the president went and fired Earl. And, that's how that all went down. But
it just
Imagine
wild.
that loyalty, though. Imagine that loyalty, right? Imagine if Gene Smith was asked to fire Urban Meyer and Gene Smith went, you know what? No, I'll quit instead.
Oh,
Do
people.
you think Urban Meyer would still be the head coach at Ohio State right now? I think so.
Oh, I think.
I think the president would have been like, yeah, I'm not going to lose Gene and Urban.
I. We'll have to do a deep dive into that one time in the off season.
Yeah.
Just that whole situation.
Yeah.
It's still Ohio State. Not to bring this up. We're straying a little bit off topic here, but
That's
Ohio State to me is the gang that cannot shoot straight, that does not handle any situation well at all. They are the most equipped university to do whatever you want on the football field, whether it's in the classroom. But when it comes to gray area or a little controversy, it seems like they just overtly go. They go. They go into a place that's just straight up head ass thinking.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, the I've heard it said so many different ways about Ohio State, but they're like a cruise ship, right? They're so fucking big and massive, and you can't turn it. So once it gets started in a direction, you can't change directions very easily. And so they just, and there's too many people. There's too many people involved. There's not enough unilateral decision making, and just there's so much politics to everything at the university that it's hard to do anything. And that I've worked on the healthcare side of it. I've seen the athletic side of it. The university as a whole is just so difficult to navigate and work within that it's hard to get things done, and it's hard to do things the right way and deal with situations.
Because it just seems like it's almost like a city council meeting, to where a whole bunch of people go and complain, and then
Yep.
half the city council says
Nothing
we're
gets
going to do
done.
this, the other half says we're going to do that, or we're not going to do it, and then it just a whole bunch of conversations happen and no action ever gets done, and
Yeah.
it's just like, well, we're just going to do this. It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense to me.
And that intersection that the meeting was about, that people keep getting killed at when they turn left, just stays the same for years and years and years, because we can't figure out how to make a roundabout or something, like.
And it's simple. And I mean, a personal situation with you is a prime example.
Yeah.
So it just and I think eventually they would have fired Urban. I think they would have.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think they would have had to.
Because it was just too much nail to hammer. But
yeah. Well, and as the saying goes, there's only one way out of Ohio State.
Yes.
You don't leave Ohio State. You get told to leave Ohio State.
Unless you're Tony Alford.
Well, I guess they're more so talking about head coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think position coaches come and go.
Yeah, I think Tony's just another side note. I think Tony's seen the writing on the wall, and instead of getting fired,
yeah,
he just decided to leave, and
leave with some dignity.
And I know there's some other shows out there that have been piling on Tony, whether his heart was in it or not. That's rather here nor there. But
I'll touch on that real quick. Actually, I'll tell you one thing. And any show that's piling on Tony, that's fine. Do you? I understand you guys are fans. It's really hard to show up to a job every day where you're not wanted and have your heart be in it. So I'm not saying Tony wasn't. I believe Tony put in 100% effort and tried his ass off. But if you know that your boss doesn't want you in the position you're in and is just kind of treating you like a subordinate, substandard employee, it's really hard to be motivated every day to go in there and give your best effort, right?
Yeah, and this is just one statement. I don't know if it'll ever make it anywhere, but I'm just saying that Ryan Day, since he has taken over, the last 2 years, when it comes to Jim Knowles, great hire. Now, the
Mhm.
way he handled Corey Dennis, Parker was going to get fired regardless. I think the special teams were not great, and I think
No,
Parker was going to get fired no matter what.
absolutely.
Now, Keenan Bailey and Justin Fry, I think those were more Ryan's boys, and they're
Yeah.
in the issue I have is the way he handled the Corey thing, because no matter what, Kyle McCord was not Corey's fault, because Ryan, you made the decision to start
Yeah.
Kyle.
I agree with that.
Period.
I agree with that. I know that absolutely. Kyle McCord was Ryan's project. That was Ryan's decision. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe if Corey Dennis was given full autonomy, Devin Brown probably would have been the starter, because I believe Corey believed that Devin was a better potential quarterback. However, I don't think Ryan ever believed in Corey as a coach. And I think Ryan, and I don't know any of this at all. I'm just speculating, right? I think Ryan felt obligated to provide an opportunity for Corey when Urban left. And so he elevated him to the quarterback's coach. And I'm not saying Corey wasn't ready for that, or Corey wasn't a good quarterback coach. I just think Ryan always felt like he had to micromanage that position group, because that's Ryan's baby, right? Ryan's a quarterback guru. Ryan's a quarterback guy. So I don't think Corey ever got the opportunity to grow into the coach he could have been, because Ryan was constantly micromanaging that position. So I think the best thing that happened for Corey Dennis is that he got told to move on, because staying under Ryan Day's tutelage, as much as you can learn from Ryan Day, if you're in that position where you can't grow because he's trying to keep you down by micromanaging you, then you're never going to be able to grow into the coach you can be. So I think that was the best thing for Ryan. I think it was the best thing for Corey. Ultimately, I think it was the best thing for Ohio State. They get to bring in Chip Kelly now, and that's a significant upgrade in the short term. But I agree with what you're saying.
And I guess and we'll let this go water under the bridge. I feel like if you were going to make a change, you should have done it after the bowl game. Said, okay, had a sit down conversation. Okay, Corey, thanks for everything you've done for Ohio State. I think it's time we mutually part ways. Don't disrespect the guy and say he's going to take a role within the program at a lower capacity. Just say you're firing him. Stand on business.
So
and say you're firing him.
Yeah, that's where I have a little bit of not beef, but I don't like how Ryan handles situations sometimes. Like, I think he handled that situation wrong, but I think he did it because he was trying to be respectful of Corey and Urban, because Corey's Urban's son-in-law. And so he was like, listen, I can't have you stay on as quarterback coach. And I don't know. He might have done this. He might have been like, hey, I can't have you stay on as quarterback coach. Why don't you go try to find another job? I'll give you 2 weeks to find another job. And maybe Corey went out, tried to find another job in 2 weeks, didn't, came back to him, was like, hey, I haven't found one yet. And he was like, listen, why don't we just say that you're going to move into a different role, stay with the program. That way I'm not firing you, and you can continue to look. Right. And so while I don't like that kind of soft, like sugarcoat way of handling things, I see what he was trying to do if that's how things went.
I guess I'm a little different on that topic a little bit. I think a mutually parting ways or accepting another job and leaving the program, you knew there was obviously going to be issues, but I just don't know how you hang the quarterback issues on him to make a change at that position. But some people say he was entitled, and I don't think the Corey Dennis story is over yet, and I'd like to see where it goes. And I think
I'm excited for his future. I think he's going to end up being a really good coach. He was on pace to be a really good coach before he got thrust into being the quarterback coach at Ohio State, before I believe he was ready to be. I mean, he was doing good things as an intern, and he was really on the path. And the entitlement crowd cracks me up. They don't know shit. They have no idea how he was in the building. They have no idea what he was doing. They aren't talking to anybody within the building that's saying that. All they're saying that for is because he's Urban Meyer's son-in-law, right? He's Urban Meyer's son-in-law who got a quarterback coaching position at Ohio State. He must be entitled. Bitch, you don't know anything. All right. Now, I'm not. I don't know anything either. I don't. He might have been an entitled motherfucker. Now, I've met him. I've talked to him. I've been around him. I don't see an entitled person at all. I see somebody that's a hardworking person. That's a good person. That is somebody that I would trust. But you know that try. I mean, my brother got it all the time. It was whatever that
And
what's that?
nepotism.
Nepotism, right? He was a nepotism hire, right? And all that, which is fine. Whatever. Say what you want. You weren't in there.
I mean, he went to Marshall, in which I've never been there, and I think that would be a great place as a stepping stone to start a coaching career, because
Oh, it
there's
was awesome.
a ton of history, and I heard the
Yeah.
campus is great, and then you have
Campus is cool. Yeah.
all-time legends that have been there: Randy Moss,
Got to
Chad
meet Randy
Pennington.
Moss. Yeah.
Chad Pennington, Byron Leftwich, and they normally have a couple. They normally have a couple NFL guys, and they went into Notre Dame and stood on business and took care of that. So
yeah, I know. For sure, Marshall was a great place to start his career. I mean, he went with Doc Holliday, who was a good guy. I mean, he was a good coach. He was pretty solid. And then he started there, and they had a decent room of receivers at that point. I mean, you're looking at some of the receivers they had back then were really solid. I mean, they had, let's see, when was he there? That would have been Aaron Dobson. That's the one. They had Aaron Dobson, who ended up being a second-round pick for the Patriots. And so they had some solid players, and he was able to really cut his teeth as a coach, right? And go out there and learn how to develop raw receivers, MAC receivers, and turn them in. He turned Dobson into a second-round pick. And then from there, Steve Adazio gets the job at Temple. He takes a receiver's job at Temple, and he's able to go there, and he worked with a similar caliber of athlete, different style, different things like that. But yeah, I mean, he went out and he cut his teeth elsewhere, but people still see the name and see the relation and say, oh, he only got the job because of that.
So, with all of that being said, I figured I would. Well, we could transition to this. What do you think about Warren Sapp joining the coaching staff at Colorado as a GA? I get it; it's Coach Sanders, but it's kind of, if you look at the years of experience on that staff, there's not a ton of long-term experience. No. Outside of Pat Shurmur, he's the most tenured coach.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah, I mean, I remember Shurmur. He was the head coach of the Browns. Did really, really well, let me tell you. But no, Warren Sapp, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. Is he going to be a good coach? Maybe. But it's Colorado also, so I'm not too worried about having established coaches. I mean, get raw talent, and these guys obviously have played at the highest level, more so than like even Brian Hartline or James Laurinaitis. Like, those guys were solid NFL players, but you're talking about Deion Sanders and Warren Sapp. Those are two of the greatest of all times. Like, that's a little different pedigree there. But I don't know how Warren Sapp's going to be as a coach. And I also, the thing that bugs me about this is I don't know how much you're going to want to grind, dude. I don't think people understand how much of a grind college football coaching is. And you're taking these multimillionaires and telling them they need to work 16-hour days. Like, I don't need to work a 16-hour day. I got 6 figures. I got 8 figures in the bank. I'm good. But if they want to do it, they're going to be great at it. I promise you, because they've been great at everything they've ever put their mind to.
And I think that's where a lot of greats lack in the coaching world, because you're either, because I think a lot of times players take it for granted whenever they go home after practice. The coaches don't go home. They're
No,
still there
absolutely not.
4 hours after practice.
Oh, at least, yeah.
And the recruiting aspect of it is I think that's where if you try to sit Warren Sapp in a 16-year-old kid's living room,
That's gonna be wild.
they're not going to know who nobody knows who that is.
Oh, they'll learn real quick.
Oh,
Especially with his personality, they'll learn real quick.
And it goes to say that I don't think that with him sitting in the living room and trying to recruit somebody that has no idea who you are, and you just say, well, I'm a Hall of Famer. Well, the recruiting pitch anymore is not who you are or who's coaching you.
Yeah.
It's how much are you going to pay me?
I don't know if it's, I mean, yes, that's definitely part of it. NIL has made that an absolute part of it. I still believe there is honest recruiting going on where you have to recruit and build a relationship with a kid before you even get to the money part of things. I hate, and maybe I'm naive and wrong, but I hate to believe that the first thing you have to do is go, hey, here's the offer. No, fuck that. I want to know this kid before I offer him anything. I want to know what makes him tick. I want to know who he is as a person. I want to know what type of person he is, what type of family he's from, what type of goals he has. Because there's too many soft fucking kids out there nowadays that if I put $1 million in front, they'll sign. But I don't know that kid's worth a goddamn. Like I'd rather have a 4-star or a 3-star that's willing to grind and is a fucking square jaw, hard nosed motherfucker than some 5-star number 1 recruit who's just interested in what bag they get. So I have to believe there's still an element of building a relationship and finding out about that kid before you ever get to the NIL part. I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. And that's where I think Warren Sapp and Deion Sanders can excel is their personality. And I think they can build relationships really well. And so I think that is where they'll excel. I think where they'll fail, I think they'll recruit really well, just not even based off their name, because like you said, kids don't really know them, but the kids know who Deion Sanders is for sure. Maybe less Warren Sapp. But I promise you, when Warren Sapp says I'm, Super Bowl champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, Hall of Famer Warren Sapp, first thing that kid's doing is going on TikTok, Google, Snap, whatever, and Googling Warren Sapp, and he's going to see a dog in those highlights. And he's going to be like, holy shit, I want to play for that guy. So I think the name still carries weight, and I think it'll work for recruiting. I just don't know how they are as technical coaches.
Yeah, and I seen a graphic the other night that broke down the Super Bowl as far as like how many 5-stars are in there. Mm-hmm. There's more 3- and 4-star kids in the Super Bowl that were draft picks than there were 5-stars.
I believe that. I believe that for sure. I mean, that makes sense, honestly. 5-stars are flashes in the pan, swing and miss type of guys. And when you hit, they're great. But when you miss, you got to have some 3 and 4 stars that step up and take over. And so, and also, are you talking about just this last Super Bowl or?
Yeah, just this last Super Bowl.
All right. Well,
I had seen
you take a look at the rosters of this last Super Bowl. You're talking about Kansas City, who has like absolutely nobody that has been known until the past couple of years. Like Travis Kelce, that guy was maybe a 3-star, but he's great now.
Oh yeah.
Mahomes wasn't a 5-star.
Nope. Mahomes was a.
Let me think about on offense. If they have any 5-stars, probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe. Was he a 5-star? I don't know.
I think he was a 4-star. I think he was he was one of the fringe because they were worried about him in college because he was undersized.
Yeah, undersized. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of maybe some linemen or something like that I don't know much about. But that's interesting. I believe it, especially with this last Super Bowl. I don't think now. Yeah, I mean, I believe 4-stars and 3-stars are the foundation of all rosters, not just NFL rosters.
So, with the Chiefs being invoked,
yep,
Rashid Rice
Oof.
smashes up his leased limo in
Lambo,
Dallas.
Lambo,
Or yeah,
not a limo.
yeah. Oh,
If he was driving a limo, that'd be a whole different issue.
but still
Yeah,
Lambo. I
yeah.
misspoke there.
No, you're good.
Uh, totals the Lambo. We had an in-depth conversation, I believe, a few weeks ago about Ubers, and I don't know if
Oh
the guy
yeah,
was or if he was under the influence, but you're a six-figure athlete, and these guys can't drive for
buddy.
shit.
God, it pisses me off, man. It really and then what a fucking idiot to just now. I say that first. What a fucking idiot to flee the scene. Like, how many Lambos do you think are just flying around Dallas? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a few. Like, it's not just like he's the only one. It's Dallas. There's plenty of money, but it's not like a common thing, right? So, what do you think's going to happen when you flee the scene of a crash with, especially a Lamborghini? Like, if it's a Honda Accord and you take the plates off, like, I don't know, maybe nobody ever figures it out. But a Lamborghini, especially ones that's leased, like, okay, they're going to find out who you are. Also, why are you fleeing the scene? Like, and I've heard rumors of why. I believe that there is videotape of a duffel bag being taken out of the car on the way, as they run away. So maybe that had some paraphernalia or weapons or something like that he didn't want to get caught with. And if that's the case, and I'm not advising you to flee the scene of a crime, but if he got the guns and drugs out of there before he got arrested, good for him. Lowered his charges. But but like, aside from all that, dude, like, why are you racing on the freeway? How much money do you make? You can't rent a track for an hour, take that bad boy out and unleash it in a safe environment.
I
Like, if you want to race your buddy, they'll let you go one-on-one on a track, a 2 mile or 1 mile, whatever, like a Daytona 500 type track. Go out there and run laps and see who's faster. I don't know why you got to weave in and out of traffic on I-10 or whatever in Dallas. Like, what are you doing?
it it just one of the major issues I have with this is if I'm that leasing company, I have insurance
Yeah, you're good.
is one thing, but I would also sue him for lost revenue.
Oh, for sure. Because I mean, it's one thing if you total the car. It's one thing if you get in an accident, and obviously you have insurance and all that shit to cover all that. But if you'd have to look at the lease document to know this, but I'm sure there's clauses in the lease that if you're driving reckless, if you're doing anything like that, there's going to be penalties for driving erratic and breaking laws and things like that. Like, the insurance is there in case you're sitting at a red light, some dumbass rear ends you and totals it. The insurance isn't there for you to drive 160 miles an hour into the back of a lady and her dog.
That
Like,
like I don't know what point we have to get to, and I may sound like the old man yelling at the clouds here,
yeah,
but one, you went and fucked up somebody else's stuff for one,
yeah, that's
and
never cool.
and you don't have enough respect. I get it. You pay to lease the car. The car is kind of yours, but not really. And you go
Yeah,
ahead and total it. Like what in the hell are you doing?
yeah, and I agree completely with that. Like, it's a common thing in our society nowadays that people don't respect other people's property. People don't respect other people's anything. I get that. Now there's one thing I will say, because I've heard this take a lot after this came out, and I want to kind of push back on it a little bit. I've heard the take of like, man, what is going on with these NFL young athletes that think they're above the law, that go out and drive like this, that do this, that crash this, da 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 da. Right? Pause. The percentage of athletes that do this is very, 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 very small. Okay? You're right. They shouldn't be going out partying until 4 a.m., driving 160 miles an hour. And I'll tell you what, 90 some percent of them aren't. So let's not make it bigger than it is. Like this is a big deal. It was a stupid decision by one person, but there are, let's see, 53-man roster, 32 teams. That's roughly 150, 168 players, and there's one this year that did this. So that's less than 1%. So
Yeah,
let's calm down on the narrative that this is a common thing, that it's an epidemic amongst young athletes and things like that. Like, you know how many times this happens on a daily basis across the United States of America, and you never hear about it because it wasn't an NFL athlete?
oh,
Okay, so let's settle the narrative a little bit.
well, and not that I'm pushing back on this. The issue this stems with NIL. And
Yeah,
what do you expect if you are a Dodge dealership? What do you expect when you give Jalen Carter that hasn't
yeah.
been that hasn't been driving longer than my kid's been alive? What do you expect is going to happen when you give him a 500 horsepower car? Are you
Yeah.
like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I understand. But here's the thing. Okay, so push back on TikTok, push back on YouTube, push back on Instagram, push
Oh,
back on all that shit. What do you mean? What do you expect when you give these influencers Mr. Beast? I mean, luckily Mr. Beast seems like a pretty good guy. But like, what do you expect when you give these influencers millions of dollars at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old? They're going to do this shit. Like, I'm sorry, does that mean they shouldn't do it? I don't know. I mean, I got a Pontiac GTO 2008 Pontiac GTO when I turned 19. Thing had 500 horsepower, V8 engine, and I drove it for a year and a half before I wrapped that thing around a pole. Now, I wasn't making money, I wasn't rich, but I was driving fast because I was a young fucking kid and I was stupid. Like, I'm sorry, that's just what young kids do. They're stupid. It's gonna happen. Whether you give them $1 million or you give them $1,000, they're gonna find a way to do stupid shit. They're 19 years old.
yeah. But yeah, it's it's boggling to me because they don't want to go and try to fix the crux of the problem.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a whole societal problem that is very difficult to fix.
And we're not here to solve the world's
No,
problems.
that's not my. I mean, it might be my issue. I got kids, so it could be my issue down the road, but
Yeah,
it's not an issue I'm equipped to solve at this point.
exactly. And plus I drive a pickup truck, so I don't drive a scat pack.
Yeah,
But
well, that's probably smart.
but in other news, we had some breaking news. I see you got the Blue Jackets uh
Yeah,
polo
yeah,
on. There was
yeah.
ESPN just reported a massive brawl erupts in the Rangers Devils game. Eight
Oh,
players in
really?
eight players in total ejected.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
can't wait for the video. That's awesome, dude.
I that's what
I love hockey fights more than anything in the world, man.
so
That's like that is my shit. Like, hockey fights are the best. And anybody that I'm not a like traditional hockey fan. I just became a hockey fan when I was like 18, 19 years old because I was
blue,
in college, and the Blue Jackets came around when I was like 10, 11 years old, and I like didn't really pay attention to it. But when I got to University of Kentucky, my roommate was from Pittsburgh and he was a huge Penguins fan. And I was like playing NHL on Xbox with him and I got really into it. And I became a Blue Jackets fan because, first of all, fuck Pittsburgh. But
kid show.
anyways, it's
It's a
not a
kid
kid
show.
show.
But
But yeah, so I love hockey fights. And I think anybody that thinks fighting in hockey is stupid is just go away. Don't watch then.
uh, I cannot imagine what this video is going to be.
It's going to be
I've
awesome.
yes, it is going to be awesome. And in in other news, we have the Chiefs and Royals. Now
Okay.
they put it to a vote in, I believe it was Jackson County, Missouri, and the citizens of Jackson County, Missouri, by 58% voted no against, I believe it was $400 million in renovations to Arrowhead. and then it would be a new downtown ballpark for the Royals.
Oh.
Now, the Royals ballpark is over 50 years old.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, no, I did know that actually. You're right. Yeah.
So here's my stance on this. When it comes to any business at all, whenever you raise the wage of workers, they always push the cost over to,
of course,
the customer.
Yeah.
But I did see where the ownership group, the Hunt family, and the ownership group of the Royals were going to pledge $1 billion to the whole project itself. And as somebody that is a baseball fan, the Kansas City Royals are a staple out there. And if you don't give them a new stadium, don't think they ain't going to pick up the phone and call Nashville, because Nashville is gangbusters right now. The Predators are doing really well.
Oh yeah.
And I would not be shocked if Kansas City calls them up and says, "Hey, you want a team?" or calls up San Antonio.
Yeah. You know what? Here's an interesting subplot to that. Do you know who one of the owners of the Kansas City Royals is?
No, I do not.
One Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Now, if he were linked to moving the Kansas City Royals out of Kansas City to Nashville, how do you think that would impact his legacy in Kansas City?
Well, the one thing I do know is football fans and baseball fans are two totally different people.
Well, they cross over sometimes. Trust me. There's not enough
people. They cross over, because I know pure baseball fans that don't watch one snap of football. So,
I don't know any of those, man. I got to be honest with you. I don't think I know a single one of those.
I know quite a few. But,
really? That's wild.
But
anyways, so what I'm trying to say is Kansas City Royals are too entrenched into the fabric of Kansas City to leave, in my opinion. Now, if they don't get a new stadium and they feel like they're getting a bum deal, could they Art Modell it and move them in the middle of the night? Maybe. I don't think they're going to do that. I think there's enough there's enough work to be done that they'll get something done. It might not be this deal right here with a brand new stadium in downtown, but it's just they'll get it done. I mean, I could. There's not a lot of me that could see the Royals leaving Kansas City. I think that would be a cold day in hell.
It's not that. I think that we've got a huge following, but I cannot fathom. It's hard to wrap my brain around teams moving. So it's just
I hate teams moving. As a Browns fan, I have a little PTSD from that, even though I wasn't. No, I was alive when they left. Yeah, because they left in '95. Right. Yeah. So I vaguely remember them moving, and I remember I didn't know why we were peeing on this guy's face in the yard, but we did, and it was Art Modell, and it's because, and so I have a problem with teams moving. Now, I don't have a problem with teams moving if they do it the right way, I guess, which is, you try, you exhaust all options, and the city basically tells you like, you know what? We don't really want you here that much. Like, I think the way that the Browns left Cleveland was awful. I think the way that St. Louis Rams left St. Louis was fucking tragic. Now that place is a dump, and they still haven't done anything with it, so I understand why they did. And I think the way that the Seattle Supersonics left to Oklahoma City was just fucking wrong. And that's why the Seattle Supersonics are coming back. The owner or the founder of Starbucks selling the team or moving the team to Oklahoma City, like, dude, what a slap in the face. You're a Seattle guy. Like, that's just wrong.
with that relocation, the reason why I was not as shocked that that happened was just for the simple fact of the NBA had played test games there in
Oh
Oklahoma
yeah,
City.
because the Pelicans had to relocate from New Orleans because of Katrina, and so they played their games in Oklahoma City, and they were very successful in Oklahoma City, so that made sense. But like, still, for Seattle to do that, for somebody from Seattle and somebody that's built up Seattle into this great city through Starbucks and all this corporate money, to take their team, which I don't, I mean, I'd have to go back and look. I don't follow the NBA like that, but the Seattle Supersonics are kind of an iconic franchise,
Yeah.
and to move them out of that city into Oklahoma City as kind of an expansion team, that's just a wild thing to do.
And I think the NBA has, and I think the NBA is going to add the Supersonics back
I
to
believe, yeah,
Seattle,
I believe that's on the plans in like 2025 or 26. I
and
think they've already said that, yeah.
and I think they're going to put an NBA team in Vegas.
Oh, for sure. I think they're
And
waiting for LeBron to retire because I believe he's going to be the owner of it, or one of the owners of it.
I would not be shocked if he doesn't own an NBA team. So
No, I think that's already been talked about. I think him and Tom Brady are going in on it because Tom Brady's going to be an owner of the Vegas Raiders, and then they're just trying to own Vegas, and then they're trying to move the A's there, which is going to happen in like 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, the city's mayor was trying to push back on that, and I'm just looking at that. I'm like, the problem with tourist cities is the people that have an established base there on what they do, like the casinos, do not want
Yeah.
people drawn away from that.
Yeah.
But
No, but I did see something today that something happened with the A's where they are not able to move to Oakland until, or I mean, not able to move to Vegas until 2027, I think it is. Like there was something that happened, and then so now they're looking at playing in either Sacramento or Oakland for the next like 2 or 3 years until they can move to Vegas. So I think they're still like working out the details, but it's going to happen eventually. And it's funny. They said like, oh, the A's can't move to Vegas till like 2027, 2028, and I was like, that also gives LeBron enough time to play a couple more years before he retires and starts the NBA team in Vegas. So, like, is there some collusion going on or what's going on? But I think it'll all happen at once. They'll have all 4 major sports in Vegas by 2028.
yeah,
But,
so I think we have hit an hour here, and
yeah.
I think we got through all the topics, and I want to say thanks to everybody that tuned in to watch tonight. If you can hit the like and subscribe button, we're going to be live every Wednesday at 7:00, and
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much to everybody who listened. I hope you found some entertainment value. I hope you enjoyed something. Please comment, like, subscribe. Give us feedback. We want to make sure we're getting better. We want to try to do things the right way. But thank you so much for tuning in, and we'd love having you here.
all right, I'm going to go ahead and end it, and you guys have a good night.